Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whichever part of the country you're in, or indeed whichever part of the day you are watching this video. Um, Let me tell you about me. My name is Jim. I'm an English teacher, teaching English as a foreign language, which I've been doing for the last 19 years here in Thailand. I live and work in Thailand, and I work at a university in Thailand. This is my new channel, English Essentials, and we're going to look at all aspects of English and try to help my viewers, hopefully my new viewers, to improve their English free of charge. Can't be bad. And let me tell you why I decided to do this. Many of my students have enjoyed studying English with me, have enjoyed the style and the way I've done things, and the way that I've helped them to develop. However, some of these students have wanted their friends to get involved, but they can't because the classes are too big, they're finished, they cannot sign up. So that means some people lose out. So how can I connect to those people? And indeed to anybody, I can connect via YouTube, which I'm going to try to do now. In particular, I'm going to start by looking at listening. Well, yeah, looking at listening. I'm going to play some podcasts, some questions that need to be asked, and some answers. Now, of course, you can pause your videos and so on as much as you need to before you see the answers. And then we'll talk about how you could have found the answers in an easier way. And often part of that is about what you actually listen to. Because listening to is not the only way we do things. We also listen for. Now, what's the difference between listen to and listen for? Well, imagine I played a song to you. And at the end of the song, I asked you some questions about the song. You would actually find it quite difficult to answer the questions because you didn't have a plan before you listened to the song as to what I wanted to know. If I, however, asked you questions before you listened to the song, what was the girl's name, what was the boy's name, what season was it, and so on, you would be actively listening for that information. Now, if you look at things like IELTS and TOEIC, we need that sort of strategy. Now, I have taught levels from beginner all the way up to IELTS and advanced. Now, this is the first time I'm doing this channel, and I hope it will get better. And it will only get better if you guys give me some good, honest feedback. Jim, this was good. However, maybe you could do this a different way, or how about trying this? The aim for me is for me to help you to develop skills. As this channel develops, we will be looking at listening, speaking, reading, writing, grammar in general. Indeed, if some people ask questions about something in the comments box, then that may prompt me to do a video on that specific question. It might be the present simple and the present continuous. It might be active and passive voice or whatever. I really want you guys to drive this channel. But whilst that isn't happening, I'll be driving it myself, and I'm going to be starting with listening. So I'm going to play a listening podcast for you. I'm not going to give you any guidance or support at the beginning. But after the listening podcast, I'm just going to show you some ways that you could have found the answers, either a quicker way, a better way, or indeed just to find the right answers. And well, let me get everything ready and I'll come back to you guys and hopefully it will work. Fingers crossed. Coming back soon. Okay, here we go with the first listening podcast. You will hear this podcast twice and you will answer simply A, B, or C. Now, what do you have to do before you listen? Of course, you need to know your questions and you need to know what your choices are. So there's two things you look at, what the questions are and what the choices are. And then that puts you one step ahead because that has you listening for answers as opposed to listening to something with no real goal or strategy. You're going to hear it twice. Now remember, I don't want you to pause it during the listening because that's not real. But you certainly would want to pause it after the listening has finished for the second time. You should really have 5 answers within about 15 seconds of the second time you listen. And you have to be honest with yourself. Feeling good about getting the right answers is no good if you're taking longer than required or you're listening to it more times than expected. So you'll hear it twice, and you should then have 5 answers, A, B, or C. Then we'll review maybe the best ways for you to get these answers. So let's move on and let's listen to the podcast.
Well, I think Beckham deserved to be unpopular. Throwing all that money around, having 20 cars. I mean, who on earth needs 20 cars?
But that's nonsense. You can't believe everything you read in the papers.
I suppose you're right. But you must admit, footballers get paid too much money.
I don't think so. Some earn huge amounts, but smaller clubs can't pay a lot for their players.
OK, you're right there. But my point is they should all get paid the same.
I don't really agree. You have to pay for talent, don't you?
But I don't think there's much talent involved in kicking a ball round a field.
That's rubbish. Everyone knows you have to be really skillful to play professionally. I think you're just trying to wind me up.
Okay, so that's the end of the podcast for the first listen. At this point, some things to note. You will not get the answer to number 3 before you have the answer to number 2. So that means that if you know the answer to number 1 and you know the answer to number 3, but you don't know the answer to number 2, that means you have missed that answer. And likewise, if you have the answer to number 5, not number 4, but you have 3, you have missed number 4. Now, this is early listening, if you like, because in the future, if you're doing things like TOEIC, TOEFL, IELTS, it's very rare that you'll get 2 opportunities to listen. And maybe some of you just want to listen once, and that's fine. Listen to it once, put your answers, accept your answers for the first time, and see what you got wrong or how well you did, and then see how that progresses as we have more listening podcasts. Anyway, number 2, or the second listen.
Well, I think Beckham deserved to be unpopular. Throwing all that money around, having 20 cars. I mean, who on earth needs 20 cars?
But that's nonsense. You can't believe everything you read in the papers.
I suppose you're right. But you must admit, footballers get paid too much money.
I don't think so. Some earn huge amounts, but smaller clubs can't pay a lot for their players.
OK, you're right there. But my point is they should all get paid the same.
I don't really agree. You have to pay for talent, don't you?
But I don't think there's much talent involved in kicking a ball round a field.
That's rubbish. Everyone knows you have to be really skillful to play professionally. I think you're just trying to wind me up.
Okay, that's the end of the second listen. In 15 seconds, I will give you the answers. Now, if you want to pause this video and take a little bit longer, that's fine. But it's my belief that if you want to do it properly, 15 seconds, and then you should be ready with 5 answers. What I would also say to you is, always guess if you don't have an answer. If you have a blank, if you have blank in IELTS or in TOEIC, TOEFL, you will get 0. If you have a guess, you might get 0, but you might get the correct answer, especially if it's multiple choice. It won't always be as easy as that, but certainly with TOEIC, a lot of the listening questions are multiple choice. Okay, let's move on and find out what the answers are and maybe why. Now, if you look at number 1, I asked the students, what's the key word in the question? Of course, the key word in the question is cars. Why? Well, if you look at the answers, everything is a how many answer. Now, if this was something like 12, London and 2:30, then the how many question is important. The question word would be important, but all the answers are numbers. So the key word here is cars. So let's listen.
Well, I think Beckham deserved to be unpopular. Throwing all that money around, having 20 cars. I mean, who on earth needs 20 cars?
So your answer there is 20, and I would hope that most people got that right. And if you have, that's good. That means the first thing you've listened to, you got it right. That's good. Okay, let's look at number 2. Now, what did the man say about footballers? And this is where you need to say these words before you listen. They get paid too much. They play too much. They deserve all their money. Now, the one thing I can see here is play and paid sound very similar. So I've got to be listening for this. Is it paid with a D sound at the end, which is basically the same as the past tense of play, or is it play? So let's listen.
But that's nonsense. You can't believe everything you read in the papers.
I suppose you're right, but you must admit footballers get paid too much money.
Okay. So the answer there is footballers get paid too much money. Footballers are they, so everything is a they, that's fine. Play was the verb, but it was get paid. And we had the word money, but the verb is different. So the verb is deserve. I always tell my students about where a verb makes a difference. And I tell my students why I like homework and why they don't like homework. Because of the verb. They have to do homework, but I give homework. So the answer there is A, they get paid too much. Number 3. Now again, to know what you're listening for, in the question we have a prompt. The man said footballers should be all paid the same. The girl replies to those comments. So we are listening for, first, what the man said, and then we're listening for how she replied.
I don't think so. Some earn huge amounts, but smaller clubs can't pay a lot for their players.
OK, you're right there, but my point is they should all get paid the same.
So at this point, he said they should all get paid the same. Notice it would be paid the same, get paid the same. Sometimes the grammar's slightly different. Might be the verb to be, might be the verb to do, might be a synonym verb, but it's the same message. Should all be paid or get paid the same. How did she reply?
I don't really agree.
I don't really agree means that it cannot be A. Now this is where sometimes when you have to guess, it's better to guess 50-50 than 1 and 3. So, okay, I know it's not A, but is it B or C? We have to keep listening.
You have to pay for talent, don't you?
There we have the answer, B. Sorry. You have to pay for talent, don't you, which is B. Okay. What did the girl say you have to be to play professional football? Now, there's no prompts there to tell me when I'm going to hear this. But we know we're going to hear it after we've got the answer to number 3. So we know at this stage, if I've got the answer to number 3, I still haven't heard the answer to number 4.
But I don't think there's much talent involved in kicking a ball round a field.
Now, there is a little link there because he said talent and she said talent. So talent, when you have talent, you have an adjective to describe. You think about talent in English. I've got good listening skills. I've got excellent speaking skills. These are talents. So what did she say?
That's rubbish. Everyone knows you have to be really skillful to play professionally.
Now notice here she said to play professionally. She actually used an adverb, but the question was actually an adjective. But it's still the same thing. you have to be skillful to play professionally. And now we come to question number 5. Well, let's see answer this one. So that's skillful, which is here. Now the last one thing you'll see here is the person. We are asking this question, so the person here is a third person. When she speaks, she'll be the first person. So what do we mean? If you look at the word her, we've actually got 2 different words here. We've got her as a possessive adjective, and we've got her as the object pronoun. So how do I know which one is which? Well, if I have a noun before her, it has to be a possessive adjective. Her cup, her phone, her TV, her wallet. If I've got a preposition, then that has to be an object pronoun. Her up, her out, her in, and so on. So when she speaks, she's going to use the first person. She's going to use find my cup, wind me up, and take me out. Now, those 3 words tend to go together very quickly. And it's almost like you're listening for a sound. So here's a sound you're listening for. Nice and quickly. Find my cup, wind me up, take me out. These are the 3, almost like now it becomes one word with 3 syllables. Let's listen.
I think you're just trying to wind me up.
And there you go, there's your answer. Okay. Here we are. Number 1, 20 cars. Number 2, the man said the footballers get paid too much. Number 3, she didn't agree with that because she reckoned that you have to pay for talent. She said you have to be very skillful to play football, and she thought he was just trying to wind her up. Now, interestingly, in my lessons, I tend to go through what that actually means. I'm not going to do it here, but this is where you build your own skills. Well, what does that mean? Wind me up, wind her up. That's where you go to Google and find out. It's actually a phrase. It's a very common phrase that's used. And I'll leave it with you to find out what that means. At this stage, you had to know how it sounded. But of course, it is good also to find out what it actually means. And that's the end of the listening. I do hope you enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something from it. Remember, give me some comments. Give me feedback. How did it work? Did it work okay? What would you like to see done differently? Is the font okay? You know, we can just go for plain white and black if it makes it easier. And we can see. So really let me know. This is the end of my very first listening English Essentials podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. And until the next time, bye from Jim.